2nd.
Yep.
5 would be your month, January, February, March, April, May. So for me, that would be 2nd of May 2014. So, and now here we go. We've got some coming in now saying, that's funny, somebody else miscounted the months like I've done on occasion, but we have 2nd of May 2014 and 5th of February 2014.
Yep.
And therein lies the problem.
Exactly. Yeah, that depending on where you are, depending on the culture that you're working in, this could represent who knows what, and especially if we got rid of, you know, and I'm really going to kind of circle that example right there, that I'm keeping every number 12 or under, and I'm using 2-digit, I could make the argument that that's going to be June 9th. I could make the argument that that's December 6th. I could make... I mean,
you know what? And nobody's wrong.
Exactly.
So it's important for us to be able to have a little more control over how we show dates to users.
Exactly. Yeah. And this is really the biggest issue when we're talking about dates is it's not just simply okay, now we've got something other than a string. It really is, how do we take the input and how do we display that back out? So what if we want to change the way in which we display everything?
Right. So but we could specify the actual name of the month rather than the number for the month. Because if I say 2nd Feb, then it makes it pretty clear that's the month of February.
Right. Yeah. And that's honestly, I mean, in my own personal life, that's why I always spell it out. That I will always go day, month, year, but I will always put the 3-letter abbreviation for the month.
Yeah.
Just make it nice and clear. Let's just eliminate ambiguity, you know?
Absolutely.
So, but in any event, so what happens if we want to change the way that we display everything out? Because again, different countries are going to be doing different formats, and a lot of times that default isn't what you need. And on top of that, even if I might be thinking, well, the culture is set for US English. I know that my user is expecting US English. So I might be thinking, well, I'm just going to rely on the default output from Visual Studio. Let's, you know, just fire this back up again. There we go. You're going to notice, you're going to notice that I opened the wrong window. You're going to notice right up there that it's giving me year, month, day, which not everybody is necessarily going to be expecting.
Yeah, and again, people can mix up, is it year, month, day, or year, day, month? So it's not clear.
Exactly. Okay, so let's kind of go back to the slide and talk about all that. Let me, where's my slide? There's my slide. Okay, so here's the thing. This is something we can handle. This is something that we can deal with, but it is just going to take a little bit of extra time and a little bit of extra code. And it's one of those where it's not difficult. It can sometimes be a little bit tedious.
I was going to say, it's a bit fiddly.
It can be, fiddly, funky, tricky, you know, but it's not necessarily difficult.
Yeah.
All right. So then how can we start to break things down? Well, one way that we could break things down is to actually just use that day, month, year. But one of the problems with just using the day, month, year properties is that after a little while, that particular bit of code can just get longer and longer and longer. And then, of course, we also have the problem of trying to convert those number types into strings and so forth and so on. So fortunately, just like Susan demoed with our numbers where we have different formatting options, we've got the exact same thing for dates. Awesome. Till we look at the slide.
Yeah. Not exactly intuitive at first glance. You don't look at this and go, well, obviously that's taking a date and formatting it to show day, month, year. Okay.
So, yeah, we've got current date.
That part's straightforward, right? Yep. That contains the current date. That's our date variable.
strf time. String from time.
Yes, make a string from a date time element is what that's actually short for, but they made it nice and cryptic.
Yep. And then you'll notice that we've got %d and %y. And so those two are pretty straightforward.
Those make sense.
Yeah, the %d is my day, the %y is my year, the %b is my month.
And the reason, just so you know, they aren't just making it %B to make your lives difficult. The reason they had to use %B is because they use M for minutes when you start getting into times. So they always have this problem, but there's minutes and there's months, and they can't use M for both of them.
Yep.
And uppercase, lowercase mean different things. We're actually going to see that. So that's why they had to go with something else. Why they picked B, I have no idea. But they're not doing it to confuse you. Programmers, people who make these languages are not out to get you. So yes, it's a little confusing to getting used to %B. When you forget it, look it up. Just search for help on string format time or how do I format a date output in Python. You will find on the first page of results in Bing something that's going to have a nice example. And actually in the reference document that is in the GitHub, we have a link to the documentation for string f time, which gives you a link to all the different options.
In fact, if we take a look at my slide here, you'll notice there's the little link. I'm just going to tap on that. Whoops, I'm on a highlighter. All right, give me 1 second here.
Got to convince it to get you out of highlighter mode.
Yeah, get me out of, there we go. There we go. Okay, so right here, there is all of the different options that are available. Again, don't memorize these.
No, we don't memorize it. Look them up when you need them.
There's an old story. Albert Einstein was being interviewed by the New York Times, and the interviewer asked him about some constant, whatever the constant value was, and Einstein said he didn't know what it was. And the reporter was, a little incredulous. How could you not know what this is? And Einstein said, why would I memorize something that I could look up in a book in under 2 minutes? Same concept here. Don't memorize these things. Somebody asked earlier how it is that, we know all of this. Well, the reason that Susan and I know this is because we've done it. Because after a while, you just keep doing it, you're just going to remember it. But sitting down and trying to memorize this, that's not going to be helpful. Because the other thing is, you don't necessarily know how much of this you're going to wind up using on a day-to-day basis. So you decide one day, well, I'm going to sit down and I'm going to start memorizing this because this is what's going to make me a real developer, which it's not.
Nope.
And then you're going to wind up memorizing a whole bunch of things that you're not going to actually wind up using.
At least not every single day.
Yeah, exactly.
You'll do it once, and then you'll figure it out, and then you probably won't have to write code like that again for another month.
Exactly. So. Go look it up. Go look it up. But in the meantime, you are going to notice, coming back to my slide here, D for a day, B for a month, and then Y for that 4-digit year. And then again, if you want to break things down a bit further, you're going to notice the full, the abbreviation, the 2-digit, the 4-digit, and again, strftime.org to go get all of them. So that is what that breakdown is all about. Okay, so with that, let's take a look at that in action. All right, discard. Let's go back to Visual Studio. Woohoo! Okay, so now let's go in and let's say print, and what I'm going to do is say current date.strftime.
Yep.
There we go. And I'm going to go with %D. I'm going to go with %B, comma, and %Y. Just like that.
Yep, that
Cool.
makes sense. Day, month, year.
Yep. And sure enough, if we do it,
Much
there
better.
it is.
All right, high five. I like that. Way better as an output.
And actually, if I was going to, do it my typical way of doing my formatting here, I'll just do it like that. There we go.
You like 2-digit years?
I like the 2-digit years.
That's a very popular format too.
Yep. Exactly. And that's it. Is that and you'll notice that if you want a specific format, you can get it. Again, we're not launching rockets here. Whatever date output it is that you're trying to put together, unless you're forming your own nation, and maybe you are, but unless you're forming your own nation, somebody else has needed to output dates like that. I guarantee you that there's a code sample, snippet, or otherwise that you can go get, or just go in and kind of play with it, and you'll be able to figure out exactly what it is that you're trying to do with your date formats and your date outputs. Okay, I want. Where is the right slide?
You looking for the slide with a few more examples on it there?
Almost.
Okay.
Okay. So then, kind of taking this one step further, could you print out a sentence like, please attend our event on Sunday, July 20, in the year 1997.
Just to show you that you really can be very specific and in terms of how you display your date. So yes, you do have a lot of formatting options.
Exactly. Now, here's what I want you to notice. I want you to notice that I can't use a keyboard. I want you to notice that we're calling strf time again.
Yep, it's the same function.
Exactly. But you're going to notice, and you might have clued in on this, you might have sort of seen a hint at this earlier when we put in the comma, that we're not restricted to just using those special codes. So if you remember back to Susan's earlier demo where she was displaying out digits, well, the thing about displaying a digit is that a digit is still one component. So all that we need was a placeholder for that number to be dropped into. But when we talk about a date has multiple parts. It's got, the day, the month, the year, and everything else to go along with it, the day of the week. And so it's very common for us to need to break it down into individual components and to put string text around it. So if you want to go in and say something like, please attend our event, or put in commas, or whatever else it is that you might want to throw into there, you absolutely have that capability.
Nice.
Okay.
I could print out wedding invitations with Python. Business applications of Python. I can start up a business with that.
I love it. Okay.
Okay, I'm just going to touch on this one briefly because it said this did come up earlier in the Q&As and people were asking about working with other languages. So,
yep.
We've got, if I'm in Canada, we are French and English. So if I want to see février instead of February, those sorts of situations going to come up. That's one of the nice things about the numeric display is you have the advantage that I don't have to worry about whether the month is December or décembre. Yes, you do run into some fun when you start dealing with multiple languages. We are not going to try and cover how you localize that, but we do have a hint for you where to start your Bing searches for examples and so on. There are examples in things like Stack Overflow and blog posts that talk about how do I localize a date, and I think the slide may have a reference to
Actually,
it,
if you take a look at the slide, this summarizes basically everything that Susan just said there. But yeah, down there at the very bottom, you'll notice that there's a little project right there that you can go in and check out for going in and kind of dealing with localization.
Yeah, it deals with both currencies and date features, so it's a really useful library if you are dealing with different symbols in different languages.
Exactly. Oh, and by the way, let me just fire this back up again real quickly here, only because I want to just mention right up here in the top right, you'll notice Fork Me on GitHub. There's a reason that we chose GitHub to share out our code, and it wasn't just simply because, oh, look, we've got someplace to drop our code.
Yeah, we can put it on OneDrive.
Exactly. The reason that we chose GitHub is because you're going to notice when you start getting in and start digging deeper into Python, you start using different libraries like this, or you start using different libraries like strf time, you're going to notice that quite frequently they're open source. Meaning that if you wanted to go in and see exactly how they work behind the scenes, if you decided that maybe you want to get in and contribute, you have that ability. And most open source projects these days are maintained on GitHub. Actually, I shouldn't necessarily say most because I don't actually have the numbers. I don't know if it's most or not. We'll say many, just to be technically accurate there. So many projects, open source projects, are hosted on GitHub, and there's many a Python project that's hosted there as well. So a big part of the reason that we did that was also just to kind of get you a little introduced to GitHub and get you kind of poking around in there. If I can again kind of throw in a real quick shameless plug, I know I did this earlier this morning, but it's worth mentioning one more time that we do have an MVA on Git and Visual Studio. So if you decide that you do want to get a bit more into Git, maybe use this for your own projects, even if you're not necessarily contributing to others, then you can go in and do that.
So we're just trying to do best practices ourselves by sharing code the way most people share code. So you start getting familiar with the ways people tend to share code. So when you want to look at someone else's examples, you'll know how to access it.
Exactly. Yep.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay. Back to the world of dates.
Back to the world of dates. So now, at the very beginning of all of this, we started out with a basic question. I've got my birthday, I've got today, how do I figure out the number of days until my birthday. Well, fortunately, you're going to notice that there's a lot of different ways that we can start doing calculations based around dates. Now, in order to do this, the first thing that we're going to need is we're going to need to know what your birthday is.
Yeah, we already know how to ask people for a value. We just use our input function.
Now, pop quiz, what's the problem with input when it comes to data types?
Input always returns a string. We ran into this when we were talking about number variables earlier.
Yes. So we need to convert that into a date.
Right, because we want to be able to use those cool date functions to do some logic and some calculations.
Exactly. And this is where strp time comes in to allow you to do that conversion.
Not to be mixed up with string f time for
Exactly.
formatting dates for display.
Exactly. Now, what I want you to notice here, and let me fire up my highlighter, it's going to be the easiest way to show it, is you'll notice that it's off of date time, date time. Now, first of all, why is it twice? Because that datetime class is inside of the datetime module that we're using. So it's a little clunky, but that's why that's there. We've got that strp time, so that's how we're going to pull in our time. And you're going to notice this takes two parameters, two values. Number one is the input from the user. Number two is the format that we are expecting. Now, let's do two demos here. Let's start here. So let me open up Visual Studio. Whoops. How about I open Visual Studio? There's Visual Studio. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say this. Oh, you know what I am going to do? Watch this. I want to comment all of those out. A lot of people have been asking about multi-line comments, and you really can't do multi-line comments in Python. You can sort of do a very hacky solution, which I really don't like. On top of that, I personally don't like having a multi-line comment, because one of the challenges with a multi-line comment is you cannot nest one inside of another. Well, what happens if I've got a full block of code and I want to comment all of that out? Well, you're going to notice if I click on Advanced and Edit, that right here I've got comment selection. And you'll also notice, let me zoom in here, that there's a shortcut keystroke there. Control-K, Control-C. And you do need to hit Control for both of those.
Yeah, you actually hold the keyboard down and go Control-K-C.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yep. And then if you want to uncomment, it's Control-K, Control-U. So Control-K, Control-C, comment, Control-K, Control-U, uncomment.
And that is a really handy little keyboard shortcut that will definitely help you a little faster when you've got a lot of code and you're trying out different things.
Exactly. Exactly. Okay. So let's do this. I'm just gonna kick back real quick here to the slide. You're gonna notice month, day, year. So that's what we've decided. That's what we're gonna go with, month, day, year. So let's go ahead and come back over here, and I'm gonna say that I'm going to declare my input. User input equals input. Please enter your birthday, and let's go ahead and say birthday equals date time, str p time.
Somebody suggested that you could remember it as F is like format and P is put.
Okay,
P is
sure.
to put the time, the date time in here. I thought that was not a bad way of trying to remember it.
No, I don't want to go with that.
I don't know what it's supposed to stand for, but put works.
Yeah, put works just fine. All right, so we'll go month. We will go %D day. We will go %Y for our year, and that should give us our birth date. And let's just go ahead and print that out. We'll just do a very simple print and birthday. Excellent.
That looks good.
Okay, we'll hit start. Please enter my birthday, and I'm going to go with 5, 8, and we'll go with 2014. So we'll put in this year's birthday and hit enter, and sure enough, it works.
You have successfully taken a string and converted it into a date.
Awesome. All right. Well, let's say that I decide that I'm going to get a little bit funny here.
Okay.
And I'm going to say 8 SCP.
All right. Because how do you know?
I don't know.
To enter. You just said enter my birthday, and if you're used to typing in the month spelt out, then that's the way you're going to enter it.
Exactly.
I got a bad feeling this is not going to end well.
This is not going to end well. You'll notice, sure enough,
wow.
it did not end well, and it gave me a very, very, very long error message. But you're going to notice the key part to this right here, which is does not match the format, month, day, year. So, you know, granted, yes, a lot of that is very ugly, but it still did a very good job of telling me, the developer, this is what went wrong, that they didn't give it to me in the correct format. Now, how could you solve that? Well, when you're dealing with a console app, there isn't necessarily a very simple way to solve that. That if I'm working on a Windows app, then what I could do is I could just go in and give them a control where all that they can type in is the specific values that I want, or they only have to choose it from the UI, and that's it.
I have a suggestion actually from somebody in the audience of how you solve the problem. Tell them.
Hey, that
Why
seems
not
simple
in your
enough.
Why not in that statement when you're asking them to enter a date? Tell them the format you expect. So
Yep,
absolutely, you guys have already figured this out.
And it's sort of stealing my thunder here.
I know. Well, it was actually
look, see, I had a slide.
our coders have already solved it.
I had a slide.
Yeah. Sorry, we got usurped. Somebody in the audience already beat us to it.
All right. Well, let's go back to my Visual Studio and take a look at it. And actually, all kidding aside, that one of the things that I always find is if somebody's jumping ahead and they've already figured something out,
that means you get it.
Yeah, exactly. That means that we're going along the right path. Or if somebody asks a question and we answer it, you know, like 2 seconds later, that always means that we're down the right path. So I'm actually very happy.
That is actually, yeah, exactly. I'm seeing lots of great questions where it's like, we're about to cover that. So I can tell that some of this, you guys are immediately not only understanding, you're thinking, but then when I want to, and we're trying to address those, we're trying to get to them. So you're thinking the right way.
Yep, exactly. Now, I just updated the code here to kind of add that in. And the nice thing is that putting that month, day, year, that's sort of a convention that most people understand, that if you've gone to a lot of websites, you know, for like credit card expirations and things like that. So you've seen all of that. So now I'm sort of prompting the user, hey, this is what we want. So, okay. Now, back to our slides. There we go. All right. Now, you could also add error handling.
Yeah, that's not good. You still want to tell them to enter the right format, but in addition to that, you should probably include some error handling, which we'll cover tomorrow. Just because if they do enter something in the wrong format, maybe just because they hit / instead of /
Yeah.
You don't want the code going and exploding everywhere and giving them all these ugly messages. Said tomorrow we'll look at how to handle that a little more gracefully.
Is there a module where you can add on that sound effect? Yeah, exactly.
I'll have to look up if I can find a Python module that allows sound effects. That would be awesome. All right.
All right. In any event, so the dates then, this seems like a bit of work. So why not just work with everything with strings? Well, the problem is, what about calculations? That about the only thing that I can do with a string is concatenation. Well, now you're going to notice that I've got things like the ability to do addition and subtraction because it knows what a day is.
And so can I point out how awesome this is? One of my first real-world programming assignments, I was my first programming job. You know, graduated school, got a job. I was a member of like 20 programmers on a team writing code. And one of the things we had to do, we had to determine things like the number of days between two dates. And we didn't have this function or this ability in our code. We had, I kid you not, it was a 700-line program. That had about 9 different functions in it to do things like, say, tell me the number of days between two dates, but would convert Gregorian dates to Julian dates and back to Gregorian dates. It was a beast of a program. So the fact that we can do things like say, well, just tell me the number of days between these two dates by subtracting date A from date B, still brings me back to the days when I had to write that code from scratch. And let me tell you, that took a little while. So it's fantastic that all we have to do is say, subtract date A from day B and tell me how many days.
It always seems so simple, but yeah, it really, and it wasn't.
We take it for granted
long
now.
Ago. Yeah, it wasn't.
No, because I'm only 29.
Yeah, exactly. Yes, only 29. Right. So back over here to 29.
That's right.
29.
Continue.
Okay. All right. Okay, so coming back over to here, seems like a bit of a hassle, so why go in and do it? Well, you're going to notice here that we could go in and just do the subtraction. And you'll notice that we'll get a difference there, and then we can see the number of days. So let's actually just go in and do this real quickly here. Where's my Visual Studio? Beautiful. So I've got my my birthday, and let's go in and just simply say print, and I'm just going to kind of keep it real simple here. Is I'm just going to say days equals, and let's say birthday minus current date, and we'll just do a print and days.
Sure.
There we go. Just kind of keep it nice and easy. And I could have made it, a little bit fancier there. That I could have gone in and maybe
okay.
Oh, it's giving me a problem between date and date time.
You just doing some data type conversions there? Is this the part where I start juggling and doing data? Did we mention in one of the earlier modules that somewhere along the way we would have an error or a mistake in our code? I think so. Yeah, I don't.
Oh, that's why.
It happened, guaranteed. You think you got it there, Christopher?
Yeah, this is one of those, sometimes you just start moving too fast and you just forget a little bit of code. Here's what I want to highlight, because this is actually very important. And I always love when something goes sideways, because it does give us the opportunity to kind of use this as a teaching moment. I want you to notice something, and actually it's sort of funny because this will be our next slide. I want you to everybody read aloud the word that I have just highlighted there, the word that I'm circling. Date time. Date time, is that a single word or is that two words?
Date time appears to be showing up there as a single word.
Okay, but in English it's how many words?
Date and time could be treated as two words.
Two words,
yes.
Okay, so date
and time. Yes.
So this is a different object. This is both date and time. The only thing that I'm interested in is the date. So you know what I need to do? Is I need to just tell it I only want the date.
Oh yes.
That was where I went wrong. And this is something that comes up constantly. It comes up in programming. The biggest place where this comes up is in databases when you're doing reports. Ask somebody about the midnight problem, which is when you're trying to get today's all the orders from today. You can't just simply go in and say where date equals and then whatever today's date is, because in a lot of places it's going to be date time. So that would include midnight then as the time. Well, if the order was at 3 o'clock, that's not going to come out as equal. So there's a couple little tricks that you can use to get around it, but that was the trap that I fell into here. So I just needed to make sure that I use date. So now, let's just, let's go in and dot date.
There we go.
Now,
that should help.
Hit start, and then now let's go 9, 30, 20, 14, enter. And now you're going to notice 7 days.
Hey, 7 days.
Hey.
Awesome. Very
All right. Cool. And then you'll also notice that I could have gone days off of that, which would just give me the days. So we'll just say 9, 30, 20, 14. And you'll notice just 7 days.
7 days. So you could just return just the number of days in between.
Exactly, yeah. I'm just going to put that off to the side, kind of let that sit there on the screen for a second.
Sure.
So that way anybody who's following along kind of has the ability to see, oh, okay, that's what we did. And again, just to kind of review, that was the part that I missed right there.
That was it. That was the mistake you had in your code. You'd forgotten to say, just give me the date.
Just give me the date. Exactly.
All right.
Yep. Okay. Cool. Let's go back to slides. So, now, here's the thing. You are going to be amazed at the amount of work that you have to do with days. Susan told the story from a while ago, again, only 29,
Yep.
where she had to go in and write 700 lines to go in and start tweaking and working with dates. Again, we're not launching rockets here. Whatever it is you're trying to do, somebody else has already done. Chances are they've already been kind enough to go in and create a little project. So if we take a look, you're going to notice Date Util. So let me just click on Date Util. And there is a whole set of different functions and otherwise that are available to you to go in and play with. So you could go in, download this little module, and then start playing around. Source code development, you're going to notice, interesting. See, not everything is inside of